Your rig is live, the haze is thick, and today we're unleashing a rather unique budget fixture. I'm Theatrically Jerry, and this is the UKING ZQ01138, a 72 LED RGB segment spinner built to throw color, create motion, and punch way above its price tag. I'm going to fire it up, test it out, and see if this PAR can actually earn a spot in your rig. Included with purchase is the main fixture here, and you are also going to get a user manual as well. Something else that they've included is an IR remote, and if you haven't watched the channel yet, you'll know that I prefer RF or radio frequency due to its higher transmittance. But I was glad to see that they've included a remote of some sort on this budget-friendly fixture. This is going to help for beginners that don't have DMX consoles and want to control this fixture from maybe their DJ desk or wherever. So I was glad to see that they included this. I also like that the color matches the fixture. Something else that they've included, which is not traditional, is an IEC power cable. And again, if you haven't watched the channel, I do prefer PowerCon over IEC for lighting fixtures because these are not very reliable and they are very easy to unplug. You commonly see these on atmospherics, so I wasn't sure why they decided to go this way, but we're gonna check this out later on in the review as well. The ZQ01138 measures in at 11.023 inches tall by 10.23 inches wide by 4.72 inches deep. It weighs in at 3.85 pounds, and this is due to its mostly polycarbonate body and lens. Speaking of lens, this compact PAR packs 72 1-watt RGB LEDs. That gives you theoretically 24 watts per color. Each lens supports 0.33 watts per color, so 0.33 watts of red, 0.33 watts of green, and 0.33 watts of blue for a combined total of 72 watts with all three colors on all 72 SMDs or surface mounted diodes. The reflectors will create a fairly typical 25-degree beam angle to help push the light through your haze. The back of this fixture features a 4-character LCD display with 4 buttons for navigating the user interface. The buttons are not too small. They do make an audible clicking sound, so great to see that. Dead center here is a fan grill for the active cooling system. Directly below the fan grill is your IEC power in and out, and they've also included a dedicated safety fuse right here, which is something you do see with IEC ports, and that's for chaining the power from one fixture to the other. To the right here is the 3-pin DMX in and out, and this is for chaining your data if you want to control this fixture via DMX. UKING has also included a dual yoke with plastic thumb screws, so they are slightly oversized, so they're going to be easy to adjust. And this yoke is all metal, surprisingly, since the rest of the fixture is plastic. And you do have your M10 mounting holes here as well. If you want to attach it to a truss, you're just going to attach your C-clamp here with the M10. All right, let's power this on so we can check out the built-in user navigation and menu system. So fairly typical for budget-friendly lighting is there's no on and off switch. You're just going to plug it into the outlet and it's going to turn on. All right, so when this is powered on, your first menu you're going to be greeted with is your DMX channel address. That's A001. and it's going to be able to go to 512. So anywhere from 1 to 512 to set your DMX address. Our next menu is going to be our DMX channel mode, and that can be anything from 7 to 31 being the more advanced channel mode. I'm going to leave mine in 31. Our next menu is going to be our auto mode. So in auto mode, you're not going to have to program anything. And as you can hear, the fan has kicked on. We have auto mode 1, which is red. 2 is your green. 3 is your blue. 4 is your white. 5 is going to be yellow. And then we have cyan and magenta. And just a bunch of built-in colors that they've already created for you, as well as some built-in macro effects. Check out our next menu. Our next menu is ST, which means strobe. 16 being the fastest it will strobe, 0 being the slowest, and anything in between for your speed. That's very basic here. I'm just going to leave it at 0. Our next is SP. And that is going to be our sound mode. And then our next menu is going to be our dimmer channels for colors. So we have from 0 to 255, 255 being at full. That is for red. There's an R here. Our next is going to be our blue. Same thing. And then we also have our infrared remote. We can turn it on or off. I'm going to leave it on. And then we're back at our main menu here. Something I want to go over with you guys is this is going to be your sound sensitivity. And in order to get back to sound mode on this, you're going to go back to auto, and if I go down, see, now we're in sound mode. So you can pick from 2 different sound modes, sound mode 1 or sound mode 2. And then when you go over to SP, you can select the sensitivity of the mode. So definitely keep that in mind. But these are pretty basic menu systems for budget-friendly lights. I do like seeing that they've included the infrared remote on and off. I'm going to leave mine on because I do want to see how the remote works later on in the review. As you can see, the dimmer curve is rather smooth on this. I'm not seeing too much stepping. I am going to make my shutter speed go a little bit faster so we can see the colors better. As you can see, we're also getting a little PWM, or pulse width modulation, which is fairly typical with budget-friendly fixtures, and that is represented as these little kind of bars being shown. I can see them on my camera. I cannot see them with my eye, so definitely keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and look at just how smooth these are on a flat surface for the dimmer. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this to the back wall here of my studio, and we're going to see just how smooth this goes to blackout. So it is actually very smooth to blackout. We're not getting too much stepping, if any. But again, I am running my shutter at 1/1500th of a second, and we are getting some banding. And this seems to be at just the faster shutter speeds. Really bad at 1/12,000th of a second. Oddly enough, not really any at 1/4000th of a second. 1/3000th, yep, some banding. So we are going to get visible banding. If that's something that's important to you, where you don't want banding because you're doing photography or videography, definitely keep that in mind. But again, I'm not seeing this with my bare eye. This is only something that is visible to cameras or videographers, so not going to be a problem for our beginners as well as DJs and clubs that don't really require or care about banding. This could be an issue if you're going to use them at weddings where there's a photographer. But this is why I like to do these in-depth reviews. At the slower shutter speeds, you're not going to get any banding. So from 1/350th down to 1/60th of a second for our shutter speed, you're not going to get any visible banding. We are also going to get a 0 to 25 hertz variable strobe. Let's see just how fast the refresh rate is on the strobe. So this theoretically should be able to strobe 25 times per second. That would be its refresh rate, or the hertz. So let's see just how good the strobe is. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on red. And then we're going to check out our strobe here. I actually would prefer to have it on the white because white is a more traditional strobe color. So as you can see here, our fastest strobe here looks pretty good, convincing for a strobe effect. I'm definitely seeing a refresh on it. So it's going to be a little bit slower than 25 hertz for the refresh rate, but again, it doesn't look bad. Look at this on the back wall here. And as stated, this is a variable speed strobe, so I can go ahead and slow our strobe down. And we can get about 1 flash per second with our strobe here. So not a bad strobe, especially for a budget-friendly fixture here. You are getting that classic strobe look, especially when you mix RGB to make white. You are getting that nice strobe. Let's go ahead and bring the speed back up on it. And here it is maxed out. Something else I like to do with my in-depth reviews is show you guys the pure colors. Now, pure colors are the colors this fixture can produce without mixing other colors. In this case, it's a 3-in-1, so it can produce red, green, or blue without mixing any other colors. So let's go ahead and take a look at the temperature as well as the wavelength of the colors here. So we have our red, and I'm going to put this white sheet up so you can have a better idea of what it looks like. I'm also going to drop my shutter speed down so we can see the color better without it being blown out. So here's our red. Not a bad red. Now let's check out our green. It's not a bad green either, a little on the cool side with the green. Now let's check out our blue. I always like to see a really deep, dark blue. This is a little lighter than I like to see for my blue, but it is still a fairly deep blue color. Just needs to be a little bit more on the wavelength for blue to get that really deep royal, almost UV looking color. Speaking of UV, the blue on this will react with ultraviolet pigments as well as fluorescence, so you don't have to worry about that. This blue right here is actually reacting with some of the stuff in my studio right now, including this backdrop here, so it does give you that UV effect if that's something you're looking at. I do want to mix all of them together so I can see just how awful this white's going to be. I already know the white's going to be awful because there's not a dedicated white SMD on this, but here is our white. And you might be saying, why awful? Well, RGB is not good at mixing white ever, which is why if white's important to you, you're definitely going to want a dedicated white SMD. But I'll show you guys here why I don't like white with RGB fixtures, and that is because, as you can see here, you're going to get color fringing on the white, and the white is going to have a little bit of red in it, a little bit of green, and a little bit of blue. So you're going to get red, green, and blue color fringing when you use the white. Now, does that make it absolutely horrible? Not really. It does if you're using it for photography, but for beginners, no. For parties, no. Nightclubs, not necessarily. But for me, I would have liked to have seen a dedicated white on this, but again, this is a budget-friendly LED PAR here, so they did what they could with it. And also, it's fairly typical for RGB to have an awful white color. Okay, and the thing that drew me to this budget-friendly PAR was the dynamic segmented control of the LEDs here. We can check this out with the built-in macros or shows that the manufacturer has pre-installed on this fixture. So let's just see what I'm talking about when I say segmented. So here we go. Now, how cool is that for a budget-friendly light fixture? We have animations built right into this LED PAR. Is it gimmicky? Perhaps, but I personally think it's cool, especially for bands and house parties, as well as nightclubs, that you're getting this really cool dynamic show going on here. We're going to take a look at a lot of these right now, just so I can give you guys a better idea of the built-in animations. Let me go ahead and bring my shutter speed down a little bit so it's a little darker so you can really see. But I mean, look how cool these animations are with this. You don't really see that on budget-friendly fixtures. They're usually just going to do a color change, a color pulse, or a color jump. They're not going to do built-in animations. I'm just cycling through some more of these animations here. That's kind of cool looking. It looks like a flag. There's a lot of flower looking effects with this. You can, of course, slow down the effect or speed it up with the speed channel on here as well. But it's actually pretty cool looking. I like the look of it, especially when you're looking straight on. So when you're looking straight on with this fixture, you're going to get really cool looking animations. However, when it's pointed at a flat surface, it's not going to look as cool. It will look like maybe some strobing and stuff, but they're not really spread out enough for you to see a distinct pattern on your flat surface. And we will look at that later on in the review just to see how unique this looks in a actual setting. But for right now in the studio, as you can see, you're not going to see too much of anything. But again, for the price point on this fixture, to get this kind of animation with this is great, and I love seeing it. And we're at the part of the review that usually makes or breaks a budget-friendly fixture, and that is our sound test. Since this fixture has a active cooling system here, we can test it to hear just how loud the fan is at full output. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my external microphone. There we go. We are now about a foot away from the camera here, and we're going to hear just how loud this fixture is at full output. Now at idle here, it's very quiet, obviously, because the active cooling system has shut itself off. Now I'm going to go ahead and do white, which is going to kick on our red, green, and blue, and we're going to listen to how loud the fan is. So as you can hear, the fan is audible. I'm going to bring it closer here to the camera. Now we are about 6 inches away from the camera to give you a better idea of the sound. It's not the loudest I've ever heard, but it definitely is audible. It's not quiet. This fan is either off or it is at full output, so you're not going to get that temperature control like you get on more expensive fixtures. I am going to try to push this back as far as I can. There we go. So now we are about 3 feet away. Still audible. You are going to probably be able to hear this fixture from at least 10 feet away. You're not going to hear it if you are a musician and you're playing your music loud, or you're in a nightclub and there's loud music. Not going to hear it at all. It's not that loud. It's just audible because we're in a studio, and my studio, it's quiet, and that's the only thing we're hearing is this fan. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the white light, and we're going to hear this fan just immediately kick off. So turning off the light. And as you can hear, the fan just shut off. So after about a minute of running at full, the fan will eventually shut off. And now it's back to being a silent fixture. Something else I also like to do in my in-depth reviews is test the power output with this power meter here. A lot of companies claim this fixture is 100 watts, this fixture is 150 watts, and you're really only getting 20 watts of LED power. This one claims that it is 72 watts, and that's with red, green, and blue on, creating white. So every single LED on at full, they're claiming this fixture is going to give you 72 watts of LED power. So let's go ahead and test that out. I'm going to go ahead and plug this PAR back in, and we're going to wait for it to turn on, and you'll notice when it turns on because this is going to start up. There we go. We are running at 2.5 watts at idle here. 2.5. So it's not taking up a whole lot of electricity with nothing on. And we're going to test out each color individually and then all of them on at once. So let's test out red. Alright, so with all of the red LEDs on, we're getting 16.3 watts of power. Now let's test green. With green, we are getting significantly more power draw. That's because green is always brighter than red. So we're getting 43.2 watts power draw on our green. So we're already at almost, we're over 50 watts. So it only needs to get to 72. Let's test out our blue. So our blue is looking like it is drawing about the same as our green. So theoretically, this is over 72 watts, but we're going to test it with white because white's going to give us a better idea. So here's white. That's every single LED on. And we are getting a power draw of 93 watts. So UKING is actually accurate at stating that this is a 72 watt fixture, because you do have to include the power draw from the fan, etc. So this is at 93 watts. That's well over 72. So you are going to be getting all of that light output from this LED PAR. So that's actually good to see, because I've seen a lot of manufacturers that claim this is 80 watts and then we do our test and it's only 20 watts. So you are getting what you are paying for. Let's go ahead and see how many amps this draws. So it's at 120 volts, 60 hertz, that's US, fairly typical. This fixture draws 1.145 amps at full with a power factor of 0.67. Let's see how many amps it draws with just one color. So we'll do red. As you can see, the amps are going to drop. 0.197 amps with just red. It's going to be a little higher with the green and the blue. A little higher. Let's see what blue does. So green and blue pretty much, I feel like, are on the same channel because they use the same amount of amps. Let's go back to white, and you're going to see this spike up here. 1.135 amps. So the power statement on this fixture is accurate. I love seeing that. Let's go back to our watts. 93 watts. It also has the ability to adjust sound sensitivity. Let's check this feature out by bringing this fixture to my studio garage and introducing some haze with it. Alright, so I'm about 15 feet away from this wall right here, and we are going to test the brightness or the lux of this fixture. Currently right now, with all of the red ones on, I like to get a reading from all of the different spots so we can get a fair and accurate reading. And right now we're getting about 186 lux with a CCT of 2500 and a raw or cree of 39. So now we're going to test green. Green's always going to be brighter than red. And as you can see here, going around the hot spot or dead center of this light, and we're getting about 1500 lux, which is very decent for 15 feet away, and a CCT of 3109 and a raw or cree of 5. The CCT and the raw I don't trust with colors, only with the white light, which we will be checking. But it's always good to just kind of see what our light meter's reading. The blue's never going to be as bright as the green due to wavelength, but we are getting about 750 lux and a raw of 33 and a CCT of 2959, which again, probably not accurate. The lux will be the CCT and the raw or cree won't be with colors. Now let's check out white. So white is with every single LED on, so theoretically this should be extremely bright, which it is. So we are getting, let me take it from a few other areas here, find the hot spot. So we are getting about 2,336 lux at 15 feet, and that's with every LED on, red, green, and blue. The CCT's at 8,000, which is fairly typical, so this is a cold white. The raw, let's see what the raw looks like when it updates. So dead center, we're getting a raw or cree of 83, which isn't too bad. However, because we're mixing red, green, and blue, that raw is going to not be stable. And as you can see, if you move further over, you're going to get a different reading because, again, it's mixing red, green, and blue together. But not bad for a budget-friendly LED PAR. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel at Theatrically Jerry. I do a lot of in-depth reviews, and I do mean a lot. I'm doing about one a week right now of budget-friendly light fixtures, DJ lighting, stage lighting, atmospherics, equipment, tutorials, anything that controls DMX, fixtures, stuff like that. If that interests you, go ahead and subscribe to my channel at Theatrically Jerry. If you have any questions or comments about this fixture in general, again, go ahead and leave them down below. I do respond to all questions and comments as quickly as I can. And again, thank you guys for watching.